Hello and welcome to this video on Aldous Huxley's dystopian classic, Brave New World. Written in 1932, Brave New World can be seen in the context of the early 20th century world. The Great War, which killed an estimated 17 million people. The 1918 flu pandemic that killed millions more. The Russian Revolution that wiped out the ruling class and created a new global superpower. And after the privations of war, disease and revolution came the Roaring Twenties, with a focus on innovation, pleasure and liberality. An explosion of creativity in music, art and architecture, and huge increases in wealth as stock markets rose and rose until in 1929 the stock market crashed, devastating the economy and heralding the Great Depression that drove millions into unemployment and misery. It is this mix of conflict and creativity that Huxley picks up on and uses to imagine what the world might look like 600 years in the future, in 2540 AD. So how has the world changed in Brave New World, and why? We are told that by 2049 the tensions between countries became so great that the world was plunged into a catastrophic 9-year global war, killing millions of people. So around 2058, a new world order began to take shape to guarantee stability and safety, and the first step they took was unusual. They decided to compel everyone to buy a certain amount of products and services every year. This kept industry working and kept people employed and occupied. And when some people complained because they wanted to conserve the world's natural resources, they were murdered by the authorities. Cultural activities were also banned, because you can't consume products if you're reading, watching plays or going to museums. Some people protested. They were also murdered by the authorities. And to make sure that these protests couldn't happen again, the past was then systematically eliminated. Books published before 2058 were suppressed. So no Shakespeare, no Rousseau, no Aristotle, no Bible, no nothing. Statues were torn down and monuments destroyed. No pyramids, no temple, no past. So from 2058, the only thing that was important was the present and how you feel in the present. And how you need to feel is happy. In fact, to avoid people ever feeling lonely or unhappy, the state manufactured the perfect drug, Soma. In fact, everyone has a daily allowance of Soma tablets, just in case they feel even slightly unhappy. And the world state had also conquered ageing. They'd created a way of making 60-year-olds look and feel like they were 17. So people remained lively and active until they died. The important point is the world state has systematically erased the past. It has removed the threat of illness and old age. There is no need to worry about the future, just a remorseless focus on the present and on being happy in the present. So this is the background against which the story takes place, and the first thing we discover is that the world state, which has now ruled successfully for 600 years, has now gone even further. It has adapted humans to meet the needs of society. The story opens at a Scott Grey building called the Central London Hatchery and Conditioning Centre. Now humans are not born naturally. Every woman has the eggs harvested from her ovaries and they're fertilised in test tubes. Then they are allotted a place in a strict caste system. Alphas at the top, then betas, gammas, deltas, and at the very bottom, epsilons. The alphas and betas who will carry out skilled roles in society are left to develop in their test tubes for 9 months without further interference, but the 3 castes below them, the gammas, deltas and epsilons are treated very differently. Those eggs are manipulated in the laboratory until they have divided on average 72 times, so that 9 months later there will be 72 identical babies from one egg. And they are treated to inhibit their growth and to limit their intelligence. The world state has made them small and stupid so that they can't understand their lowly position in society. But that's not all. Once they're born, every human is conditioned to be happy with their place in society. During the night, they are played thousands of messages whilst they sleep, such as this message designed for beta children. Alpha children wear grey. They work much harder than we do because they're so frightfully clever. I'm really awfully glad I'm beta because I don't work so hard. And then we're much better than the gammas and deltas. Gammas are stupid. They all wear green. And delta children wear khaki. Oh no, I don't want to play with delta children. And epsilons are still worse. They're too stupid to be able to read or write. Besides, they wear black, which is such a beastly colour. I'm so glad I'm a beta. During the day, they're then subjected to neo-Pavlovian conditioning. The children are shown books and flowers, but as they crawl towards them, they're giving electric shocks so that they associate reading and nature with pain. This is to make sure that they don't want to spend time alone reading or get joy from simply enjoying nature. The world state needs people to buy and consume. This is what makes the world go round. And as they get slightly older, they're encouraged to indulge in erotic play. Now this is because as adults, they will be encouraged to have sex with whoever they like, whenever they like, and never to have long-term relationships or marry. And this is the society within which the story takes place, and that has shaped the characters we meet. The director of Hatcheries introduces this brave new world. He tells us how everything being done is for the good of society, even though he's running an operation that creates an elite who are supported by an army of clones who have been stunted both physically and mentally. He makes it clear that all this is done for the right reasons, to maintain stability and help people accept their position in life. As he says, all conditioning aims at making people like their unescapable social destiny. But not everyone likes their social destiny. For example, Bernard Marx. He is an Alpha Plus intellectual and should be one of society's winners, but he has one major problem. He is much smaller than the average Alpha. And that's a problem because height is associated with power and attractiveness. The rumour is that one of the people in the labs got distracted and treated his embryo with too much alcohol by mistake. Women don't find him attractive, and this makes him resentful, which in turn makes him even less popular. He also hates casual sex and wants a long-term relationship with a woman called Lenina. And although she quite likes Bernard, as a beta, she has been programmed to like casual sex and to reject commitment. Another discontent is Bernard's friend, Helmholtz Watson. He's the opposite of Bernard. He's physically gifted, mentally gifted, and very popular with women. In fact, he has had sex with more than 600 different women in just 4 years. And Helmholtz is also a successful writer, but only of advertising slogans and jingles. And he feels there must be more important things to write about, but he doesn't know what. So like Bernard, he also feels like an outsider. Against this background, the first third of the book focuses on Bernard's anger, his clashes with various authority figures, and his attempt to get Lenina to go on holiday with him to New Mexico. And 1/3 through the story, things begin to change. Lenina's curiosity gets the better of her and she agrees to go on holiday with Bernard to what is called the Savage Reservation. This is a place full of humans like us, who give birth naturally, get sick, feel pain, and get old. And when he goes to get his travel permit signed by the director of hatcheries and conditioning, he discovers that the director himself had visited the Savage Reservation, but that his female companion on the trip got lost and was never found. This information will be important later. Pleased that he's managed to take Lenina to New Mexico, he then has a huge shock when he hears from Helmholtz Watson that the director of hatcheries and conditioning is planning to banish him to a distant island for being subversive. How will he avoid this fate? The answer comes when he goes to the Savage Reservation and meets a young man named John, who looks different to everyone else. He's pale-skinned and rejected by the rest of the tribe. John's mother Linda is middle-aged and overweight, and Bernard suddenly realises that Linda must be the woman who had accompanied the director of hatcheries all those years ago, and this gives him an idea. Bernard contacts the World Controller, Mustafa Mond, and suggests that he should bring John and Linda back to London as an experiment, so they can see how they might adapt to life in the brave new world. Mond agrees, and the decision is sensationally successful for Bernard in two ways. When he arrives back in London, he's faced by the director of hatcheries, who announces in public that Bernard is to be banished for his insolent behaviour. But the director's plan falls apart when Linda walks in, embraces the director and says, "You made me have a baby. Yes, a baby, and I was its mother." In addition, Linda is described as a fat, terrifying monster of middle-agedness, whose face is sagging and blotched. No one has ever seen anything like it, because of course everyone else looks 17 because of the treatment they receive from the state. And then it gets even worse, because in walks John, who falls to his knees and says, "My father." As no one has a mother or father anymore, the words are seen as mildly disgusting and laughable. The director is humiliated and runs from the room. He later resigns. And now Bernard immediately becomes an important person, because everyone wants to see John, who becomes known as the Savage, and the only way to see him is via Bernard. So previously unpopular, Bernard is now the person everybody wants to know. But Bernard's popularity is dependent upon John, and when John refuses to meet people because he hates being looked at like a zoo animal, people blame Bernard and return to disliking him. So 2/3 of the way through the story, the focus moves away from Bernard and on to John the Savage. This section is in many ways the crucial part of the book, because it eventually brings two contrasting worldviews face to face. John's worldview has been shaped by reading Shakespeare's plays, sonnets and poems from a version that had survived the purge of old books and had been given to him on the Savage Reservation. In Shakespeare, he's read about the full range of human emotions, from joy, love and happiness, through to sadness, hatred and jealousy. This worldview will eventually come into collision with that of Mustafa Mond, whose World Controller needs to erase the past, erase the idea of suffering, and focus people on happiness. But for now, John is exploring the world, and he doesn't like what he finds. He's attracted to Lenina, but his worldview is based on monogamy, love and marriage, so her promiscuity appalls him. When she visits him, strips naked and wants to have sex, he's furious and tries to hit her, forcing her to lock herself in a room. But before he can hurt Lenina, a call comes from the hospital to say that Linda, his mother, is dying. And in the hospital, he's further appalled by the callous way the nurse allows a crowd of identical children to gawp at Linda as she dies. There's no dignity. But there wouldn't be, because they're simply being conditioned not to fear death. But John is furious, and now he hits one of the children before storming out. And then, in the hospital lobby, when he meets swarms of identical workers queuing for their soma ration, he shouts, "Don't take that horrible stuff. It's poison. It's poison." He throws their drugs out of the window and provokes a riot, which is only quelled when the police spray everyone with soma vapour. And so now come the obligatory scenes that had to happen and are actually the core of the story. First, John, Bernard and his friend Helmholtz come face to face with the world controller Mustafa Mond, and Mond explains to them why the world is the way it is. For example, when asked, why don't you make everyone an Alpha Double Plus? Mond replies that if we did, we'd all get our throats cut. Alphas can't do boring work. They would rebel and cause trouble. That's why they engineered and conditioned Epsilons to do that type of work. Epsilons are happy because they don't know any better. And he reveals that they did experiment with the idea of alphas running their own society 150 years ago. But it was a disaster that ended in civil war, and the remaining alphas pleaded with the world government to take back control. At this point, Mustafa Mond reveals that Bernard and Helmholtz will be banished. Bernard is led sobbing from the room, but, as Mond says, he's lucky, because there he'll meet the most interesting set of men and women to be found anywhere in the world. A hint that universal happiness might bring order, but it doesn't necessarily bring satisfaction with life. Then Helmholtz, a writer, chooses to be sent to the Falkland Islands so that he can suffer and so hopefully become a better writer. Lastly, Mond talks to John alone and explains the truth about this brave new world. Mond reveals that he sacrificed truth and beauty for the happiness of others. He opens a safe and gets out several classic texts like Shakespeare, saying they are pornographic in the sense that they provoke strong emotions. And that's why they have to be banned, because strong emotions are harmful to stability in society. Mond argues that the humans only needed God when they feared getting old and being left alone. Now that everyone stays young until they die, they no longer have to fear being alone, so they have no need of God. John asks whether we should be punished for immoral behaviour such as extramarital sex. Mond says that is why they changed the rules about sex. You can't become unhappy about your husband or wife having sex with someone else if there are no marriages. Also, if people have constant distractions and drugs, they don't have time to feel unhappy. Mond then says a key thing. Everything we believe is a result of our conditioning. And if that is the case, the question we must ask is who is doing the conditioning and what are their aims? In most societies, conditioning is done randomly by parents and schools. The difference in Brave New World is that it is overtly targeted at supporting the needs of a stable consumer society. But, says John, what about nobility and heroism? Aren't they valuable? No, says Mond. Nobility and heroism are only useful where society is disorganised and rights need to be defended. No one needs to fight for anything. And if by chance something unpleasant does happen, there's always Soma to make everyone happy again. Now, says Mond, all is comfort and joy. But, says John, I don't want comfort. I want God. I want poetry. I want real danger. I want freedom. I want goodness. I want sin. This is, of course, at variance with the Brave New World approach, where the idea is to immediately satisfy desires by getting what we want immediately without any regret. Pleasure is everything in this world. But although Bernard leaves for Iceland and Helmholtz leaves for the Falkland Islands, John is not allowed to leave and has to go and live in Surrey, ironically just a few miles away from where Aldous Huxley was born and is buried. Here, Mond can continue to observe John as an experiment, but John can't even enjoy the countryside because he feels he doesn't deserve beauty. He whips himself, and when this is noticed by passers-by, the press are told, and he becomes an unwilling celebrity. A movie director then films him in secret, and the movie draws even more visitors to gawp at him. until finally Lenina arrives, and this is the final straw for John. He violently attacks her, but far from frightening people off, it arouses them, and a mass orgy ensues. This encapsulates the perversion of this society. Violence ends up stimulating the kind of sexual desire it is meant to suppress. The following evening there are even more visitors, but when they go into John's home, all they see are John's feet dangling beneath an arch. He's committed suicide. For John, a society without the freedom to explore life via art and books, to feel pain and joy, to feel strong passions, to take risks and to love is no life at all. And of course the final irony is the title of the book. The word brave in this context should mean splendid or magnificent. However, the book's title is taken from a line in Shakespeare's play The Tempest, which describes the moment when a naive character thinks that the people she has just met are splendid and magnificent. The reality is they're the exact opposite. But of course, we need to have read Shakespeare to know that, which of course is why they've banned it. So thank you for watching this video, and I hope it will help you to get greater enjoyment from Aldous Huxley's classic novel, Brave New World. Give a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe now so that you don't miss any of my future posts.